This is Real Women, celebrating women in film. I'm your host, Brenda Daly. I'm an actor, writer, director, all around creator. I am here talking to filmmakers who inspire us and actors. And today we're talking to actress Katie Wallen.
Hey, it's good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you because I know you've got a couple of projects. I know you got one coming up. It's
Hmm.
about domestic violence, and then but the one that we came to talk about was you're gonna have to say it for me again.
Agramon's Gate.
Agrimon's Gate. Okay, so and you are the lead actress in Agrimon's Gate.
Yes, yes, I'm one of the leads. Now there's a few because the story does go about a few different people. It follows a few different people, but yes, I am there from the beginning until the end.
Oh, okay. So tell me what's the basic plot line in the movie?
So there is a guy who is quite cynical about believing in spirits. He's not one to like to be around it or anything, and he's married to this girl, and this girl and him move into this house, and they have a housewarming party, and at the housewarming party they invite a gypsy um, medium, and she has an experience in the house which really freaks out the guy Richard. And it's quite a whirlwind because what happens is like this experience happens, and come to find out, like, you learn a bit about his past, his dark past, Richard's dark past, and why he is this way.
Hmm.
And meanwhile, Agramon is feeding off of his fear from his dark past. So
Okay, so
it's
Agrimon's like an evil spirit.
yes, Agramon is an evil
Okay.
spirit that comes through at the seance at the party, which
Oh, okay.
it's a very yeah. Try not to give too much away, but
No,
that's
no.
what
So,
happens, and then stuff happens afterwards.
right. So, how long have you been an actress, Katie?
Oh my, I've been an actress as a professional really the last 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
I had dabbled in it in the past and I liked it, but I never thought that it was like a career opportunity for me. Like in Michigan, there's really not a lot of well, there's really not a big industry here. So it was just something that I kind of put on the side. And then it
Mhm.
wasn't until my husband and I met, and the incentives were taken away from Michigan for us to really want to pursue acting more and wanting to make quality content here out of Michigan.
So do they have a better incentive now?
No, they're working on it though. There's the Michigan Independent Film Association is actually working the MIFIA. They are planning on passing, like they're bringing some proposal up to see if we can get some stuff back. But we
Yeah, we
haven't.
actually yeah, I'm here in Nevada, and so we had a really good one, and then they gave it to Tesla.
Oh gosh, way
Yeah,
to
and I think
go.
it's I mean, it's great for the state because Tesla is obviously great, but
Yeah,
it does kill the entrepreneurial spirit, I think, and
it
I think in
does.
order to have a huge because I talked to another filmmaker the other day, and the only way to get a really huge incentive is to have a lot of people backing it, and
Hmm.
then, of course, their incentive is to rebate the filmmaker. That's basically, for those who don't know, an incentive
Yeah.
is to rebate the filmmaker, and in the promise that the filmmakers will come in and spend whatever the minimum budget that the incentives require.
Yes. Yes. Now,
So
adding to that, because you're talking like in Nevada, you guys are dealing with this as well, and you're talking about the entrepreneurial spirit. It's not just us actors that get affected, it is the small businesses in the area that you were planning on filming that get affected. Whether
yeah,
you're
because they don't
renting
have
a car,
anybody coming in spending that money.
yeah, we don't need to go in there and spend the money. We are in the middle right now. I'm a producer as well, and we are in the middle of pre-pro in a project. And my biggest thing that I've been saying, and I say it time and time again, is it takes a community to make a movie. And when I say that, I'm talking the local restaurants for catering. I'm talking the people that need to transport the talent from the hotel to the locations, to their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, it's a lot of things that people don't really factor in, and it's yeah, it's a lot of money that could be lost. But
Do you guys know anybody like, I feel like the answer to this problem is
mhm,
for that all of us that are really, into the whole I know it's another job, and it's like as a
mhm.
producer, you have so many jobs, but I
Oh
feel
gosh,
that
yes.
maybe, somebody needs to get involved in that in the commission itself and say, I don't know if they hold meetings about it. Like even in our state, I don't know if they hold meetings about it. Like no one
Mhm.
ever talks about it, but I feel like there's a lot of filming going on here.
You know what? I think because when you talk about a lot of filming, do you know, are you talking about bigger productions or are you talking about independent filmmakers?
Well, there's a lot of both.
Okay.
Of course, the independent, I call it. We use a lot of creative currency where
Yes.
we exchange and barter. But like
Mhm.
there's a big Nicolas Cage movie being filmed right now, and there's a bunch of big projects coming out here because it's still cheaper to film in Vegas than it
Yeah.
is in LA. And
Oh, yes.
we're
Big
basically an
time.
LA hub at this time.
Yeah.
So they
I
do
get
bring
that.
everybody out here. Yeah,
I
but I feel like if they were to offer we would literally, if they were just offered the right incentive, and those incentives probably won't go to your local filmmaker. Those
oh,
incentives
no.
will go to big budgets.
They will. Typically they do. But one thing that is interesting, because you're talking about those meetings and hearing about them, I actually felt the same way here because I felt like I don't ever really hear much about these meetings, and they're not broadcasted on the news or in any news outlets or articles for you to really find it or shared anywhere. I mean, maybe it is, but I just don't see it. But it's the kind of the same thing here where I kind of wonder, like, all right, are any of these meetings happening? What's going on here? But come to find out, I mean, they are having these meetings. They had one here recently, and my husband actually proposed a ultra low budget incentive for them to add to the incentives, and they were intrigued enough that they ended up, meeting with him afterwards and speaking further about it to hear his ideas because. I mean, it actually made sense because it would help the independent filmmaker rather than giving that money to the bigger production that's really going to move out of the state as soon as the film is made.
Well, I
Um,
think too, if they do that, I feel like with an incentive, I feel like they should take a portion of this incentive and definitely gear it towards the local filmmaker.
oh yes,
Definitely. But
I
I do
think.
think that the idea of the incentive is because
Mhm.
I've gone to I'm not a PGA member, but every year there's an opportunity to go to their conference.
Oh,
And so
nice.
you sit into their classes and they go where the incentives are. And
Yeah.
literally, like the whole time you're there, getting talked to by these big mega celebrities, they've
Mhm.
got countries from all over the world on this big screen and they're advertising their incentives. So I always felt like there's just a big hole there because, we do want the big production companies because their state needs the money.
Right.
But I also think that, this lady who won a bunch of awards here recently, and she did pull some permits and stuff, but she's like, yeah, basically I did it kind of guerrilla filmmaking because we don't have the money. And I think there should be maybe a competition or an award or, people kind of a grant for us,
Oh,
you
yes.
know? I think the
Yes.
grant should be for the local filmmaker
I
and
agree.
yeah, I think that maybe they need to think about, but see, I don't know how much money Michigan has for that. Like, I don't know how
Yeah.
big it is.
Well, so a few governors ago, Governor
Okay.
Granholm, she's the one that brought the incentives here in the first place, and she brought them. They're the same incentives that they use in Atlanta now.
Mhm,
Atlanta,
mhm.
Georgia has the same
Uh-huh.
incentives that Michigan had, and Atlanta has become a huge spot for filming now.
It's LA
Um,
too, just so you
LA
know.
too. Mhm.
Everybody's moving to Atlanta because LA, it's still way too expensive. Atlanta's
Oh yeah.
getting expensive, but no, I totally get that.
But again, like when this happened, she ended up leaving. Snyder came in. He decided to take the incentives away, which I don't even think we really had a big opportunity because we didn't really see much change yet because it had only been a short few years, right? We had Batman versus Superman. We had the Great and Powerful Oz. And there were probably a couple of other ones that Gran Torino was filmed here. The Transformers were filmed here, but we're talking in a short span of years that they allowed this to really show any kind of fruition in what could have potentially been Atlanta, really. if they had just given us a bit more time, or and had been a bit more patient,
Yeah,
because
I think that's a local government thing.
yeah,
You know who has the biggest
probably.
incentive right now is Oklahoma.
Really?
Everybody's going to Oklahoma, just so you know. It's become, everybody's talking about it because they were trying to do more in Utah, and
Mhm.
a friend of mine was opening up a big studio there, but then they lost all their funding because they cut down their incentive, and so
Oh,
they and
jeez.
he's a American Indian, and
Oh.
so and of course his roots are from Oklahoma. I can't
Mhm.
remember what tribe he's from, but so of course, so they had hundreds of millions of dollars they were going to go spend in Utah to have this big studio, and they were going to take another $100 million and go to Nevada, and they took all
Wow.
that money and they took it to Oklahoma.
Wow. See, that's
So it's
crazy.
so I think the people that are in the government may not be media friendly, and I think that that's why somebody like you,
Yeah.
I feel like, or your boyfriend maybe should run. Especially, it sounds like he's got
Oh, my
that thing
husband?
that people want to talk
He's
to. Your
funny.
husband, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, literally, like run for government, and that'll be his platform. They said, let's bring more filming out here. Let's bring more, government. But and most big governments run by people who have been doing it for a long time,
Yes, yes.
and so
See, that's the
they
other
don't see the
part
change.
too. They don't really. How do you expect there to be any change if you're the old dog that doesn't know how to learn new tricks, right?
Well, and media is just taking over everything. I mean, the
Yes.
one thing that stood the test of time. Now, LA shut down because of COVID and everything, but all these
Mhm.
little micro filmmakers is like, well, we can get 5 people together, stand 6 feet apart, and we can put on
Oh,
masks, and we can go
yeah.
make a film, and for a lot less money.
Yes.
So, but
Well,
of course, we'd be doing our creative currency and bartering, and they could be
mhm.
sagged because of the budgets. But
That's the
now,
wild thing too with that too though, is because like right now, I have to say with us and our films, we make ultra low budgets. So we make films that are under 300 and or $300,000, but they look like $1 million movies. But it's because we do exactly what you were saying with bartering and talking with people, and really with our locations, especially with this film we're
now
working on right
you're
now.
doing ultra low budget SAG.
Ultra low budget SAG. Yeah.
So, isn't there a thing in there? Because I looked for this for my movie. Isn't there a
Mhm.
thing in there that, you cannot distribute and make money on those movies? Or do you have to renegotiate those contracts?
Um, that depends on what you put yourself, what category you put yourself under. If you do like new media, if you release on a YouTube channel, then yes. Ultra low budget SAG though doesn't have that, and they ask like, do you have are you planning theatrical? Are you planning distribution? And in all their categories, when you're even submitting to even be eligible,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
making the film eligible to be ultra low budget SAG. um, and with us, like with this, with all the ones that we have, it's VOD is an option, and that is something that we know we can have VOD because of the distribution that we've already had in the past and the
Mhm.
relationships that we've already built. But it's
Right.
not easy for everybody.
No.
SAG has, especially from since the pandemic, SAG has been a bit more complicated and a bit more red tape than what they were before. And I know that they probably lost quite a bit of money through this pandemic, but we all have. And
I
I
think the
think,
problem with the whole COVID and the pandemic is that
yeah.
nobody knows what to do. It's not just
Oh, yeah.
SAG, it's
It's not just
but
SAG. It's
everybody, and
everybody.
everybody's so worried about getting sued.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really not about, I don't want to say this out loud, but it's really not about everybody's health. It's about getting sued, because if you get sued, then your business crumbles and falls apart. And I
Yeah.
think that, and of course that's the health of the economy. But,
Right.
but I think this is just the world that we live in. But, I
Yes.
know when I was doing it, it was like, well, you can't even afford the COVID test. And I was like, oh, that sucks. So,
Wow.
to do it SAG, it's ridiculous because, I always explore that. My daughter SAG, so I get
Mhm.
that. Um,
Yeah, we're going through and doing all of that. We're having people test. So what we're doing now, this is the other thing too. I don't know how everybody else is doing it, but we have like a closed set where the only people who are allowed in the certain areas, and this is how SAG runs too, like there's a zones for each area. But I make sure like everybody has to test testing, show me their tests like right before they just set the first day. But we're on set 5 days in a row
I
in
know.
14-hour days. Nobody is going to be in contact with anybody else really in those 14-hour days besides that group. So what you can do is compress, like, I hate to say compress the time and make sure you're doing longer schedule like day to day instead of having like, only shooting on the weekends, shooting 3 days a week, because you're going to have to deal with the whole process all over again that way.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
just get complicated, and it's just better to just knock it all out and get it all done as fast as you can. So that way you don't have to worry about somebody transmitting and somebody ending up getting COVID.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem, but I wanna go back to your,
Yes.
domestic violence film because I really wanna talk about what you're doing now. You're acting and producing in the domestic violence film?
Yes. So about that. So the film is about a woman named Nicole Beverly. She's from Michigan. She had this case had it was like within like a 10-year span. Husband had her trying to get her husband locked up until he was finally locked up. And what happened is, obviously, from the very beginning of the relationship, things were happening. And the idea in the film is really to educate people in those moments where, the first time you meet them, what are the red flags? And paying attention to all that. But Nicole Beverly has started her own nonprofit called the Enough Initiative, and it is to help all people, not just women. I think a lot of people get, you know, a little like they don't really understand it's women this is happening to. This is happening to everybody: women, children, high school students, men. And I think that the stats are even wrong on the men, just because it's difficult for men to like socially accept that they could be beaten by their wife. But 3 women, school students, and 1 in 7 men right now are going to experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And her nonprofit is to help educate red flags, but also help people find a way out, and make sure that they have what they need to be able to escape. But this film follows her from when they first met all the way up until the verdict is read. So you can
Mhm.
see these places where he had, what may have come off as flirty could have really been manipulative, or sarcastic, right? He has a chance about him, but he's able to get away with what he wants because she thinks it's flirty. So little things like that that people just don't fully like, they're just fully not, like, most people are just not aware of these tendencies. But it's
I think too,
quite the
as
ride.
somebody who has got right. I feel like there's the thing about, domestic violence and getting yourself in those situations is usually it's the most charming
Mhm.
people of all that because,
Yes.
we all wanna believe, the fairy tale story, and some people really know how to play that well. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer
Oh
was a
yeah.
good-looking, charismatic guy.
Yep.
So
Ted
so
Bundy.
I think, but I like yeah, exactly. I feel like, but you just sometimes I think it's the what do I want to say this the right way. This is the reality of evil. Like if people say evil doesn't live, it can live within people. They don't
Yes.
understand that. And the thing is because they have some sort of disorder. They don't even we're all the heroes in our own stories, and I'm sure Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy and these guys and these people who violate the other person, they always think, "Well, I
Mhm.
didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do it. That's not me."
Right.
It's their fault, you
Yes.
know?
Well, I think something to even do is most of us know a victim, but find out who the is, everyone's like, I had no idea. He's so nice. He was, the coach of the kids' team. Like things like where you're just like you're almost shocked that it just happened without you even realizing. And it's like, well, yeah, because maybe you weren't really paying attention to what could
Well,
have
I
been
think
happening.
too, people who are victims, they make excuses for the violator because
Yes.
they're in love with them and they wanna believe that person that they
Right,
met. And then
right,
as over time, that person they're no longer that person, but they hold on to that, this is not really who he is. The other person,
right.
the guy I met that did all these wonderful things,
Yep.
or the girl or the kid. And I do believe
Right.
just because we're talking about domestic violence,
Mhm.
technically bullying is domestic violence in my world. And
It is.
you
It's a
know,
it's a form of
and so I
violence.
always talk about this. This
Mhm.
has created more bullying in the last 10 years,
Oh,
and I know
yes.
this for a fact because I've had children go through it, and it has
Oh,
caused when they talk about, this should be your next movie, suicide, and this is the problem. Regardless of what you say, too many people have access to your children. As
yeah.
adults, we can filter it out, but please understand that their brains aren't fully developed and
Yep.
they will bully each other. So please
Yes.
remember this is a tool for any bully to get at you anonymously. And even if they're not anonymous, your kids are so afraid to say anything. Okay, that's my platform. I'm done with that.
Oh, I'm I'm fully on board, but I totally agree. I think that we don't do a really good job as a city of people feel that it's okay to be unique. It's okay to be
Safe.
different. Did you hear me?
Right.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, 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 I totally get that.
Yeah.
I
Um,
yeah, can you hear me? Okay, so I
oh, I
totally get
can.
that, and I think we were just talking. Yeah, I feel like we were talking about that earlier, because I feel like, we are all unique and that we need
Yes.
to be more accepting of the other person but I think people who attack other people is because there's something inside of
Mhm.
them or something happened to them and they think that's normal. Somebody's normalized that for them.
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah,
so it's
totally.
a excellent subject. And then like the reason why kids
Mhm.
bully isn't really because they're jealous because they feel like that other kid has gotten more attention or they don't
Yeah.
their insides aren't settled on who they are. So it's their insecurities
Yep.
and they're playing it out against another human. And I
Yeah.
think that, as a society, you're completely right. We need to be better. We need to be better people. And as filmmakers, like Katie here, telling these stories are probably the most important stories you can actually tell because I work with a lot of filmmakers and I know that a lot of them do a lot of domestic violence and they do a lot of bullying videos but I feel like it's just not enough and some of these kids just aren't getting it. I don't understand why. You know,
I have to say some too because we live in a totally different kind of world than even you and me growing up. Um, I didn't have social media until I was in, middle school. And even then, okay, so my cell phone, right? I didn't get that until I was like 14, 15 years old, where nowadays you're seeing children in kindergarten getting cell phones and they have access wrong. I think that, there's a time and a place and things can be, I don't think kindergarten is really the time to let your kid have a cell phone, but that's just me. But if you're responsible and you pay attention to what they're looking at, just remember that, like you said, everybody has access to them now. Everybody has access to them now. And it doesn't
I
take
did this
much.
takes nothing, and I'll tell you what, I did this thing, I help out with a bike build, they build bikes for kids, but, the guy that I was working for, he was telling all the people that were getting ready to build a bike is like, "There is more technology in your cell phone today than there was to launch the first man on the moon, and that's what you're handing your
Wow.
child." Think
Wow.
about that. Think about
Yeah.
that.
That's
So I think
crazy.
it's really important that people know this. So when they're handing it to their 5-year-old, this is
Mhm.
literally could be a weapon against your
Mhm.
own child. And even adults, like people have this, especially
Yes.
we've been locked down
Totally.
and we've talked about COVID. Yeah, but so we need to make more films about that because it is crazy what people will do.
So, I mean,
It's
our biggest thing
insane.
it
So
is, for sure, for sure. I think our biggest thing is, especially as creators of, art, this is art. We always
in
want there to
media,
be a good message. You have to get a good message out of it. With this film, domestic violence, if person watches this movie decides to start thinking about themselves in a different way to make sure that they are not harming people, that would be the world for me. We could find these abusers before they become abusers. I mean, to be able to help victims before they're even victims. We can do that. Power to power to us, you know?
Right, right, and also making it a very interesting story, and,
Yes.
I think that's why documentaries do so well, because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
literally real stories, and sometimes real life is more
Mhm.
interesting than fictional life, and I
Yeah.
think that with the filmmakers, we need to learn to, if we could just, and a good filmmaker knows how to put those two pieces together, and really
Yes.
people will, even if they've never been violated, you
Oh, yeah.
almost get that feel what it may be like, and then you will
Mhm.
understand that other side, as opposed to, well, it happened in the past. No, it
Right.
didn't. It happens to people every day, and we need to listen to each other and understand that your story is going to be completely different than my story, but it doesn't mean that your story or my story is, you know, less important.
Right.
So I want to go so I
Definitely.
want to go back to your as an actress.
Mhm.
So you never left Michigan as an actress?
No, I haven't. Been making films here. We've been making films here. I have had opportunities to that just due to scheduling, COVID had actually halted some stuff that I was going to, but with us, we've just had such a great uh, like we've had such great feedback and such like distributors working with us and getting bigger opportunities that I'm investing a lot more into us and in our projects. But I am like so ready to get out and do more outside of the state.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like for those of you who are watching, that Katie is definitely the epitome of nothing's going to stop her. She's an actor. She's creating her own content. This is the future of filmmaking for all actors and actresses, honestly. And the thing is that you may not be getting those big budget TV movies,
Mhm.
although they could make it on TV, but you're also empowering yourself to make the kind of content and be in the kind of content that you respect. And I think that, we're not all here
Yes,
to make $1 million. We just want to make things that matter to us because we're creators and it is an art form.
that's right.
It can be a brutal art form and it's a lot to do, but, I think that's definitely the way about it. And I believe like people like Katie and her husband and myself and even my daughter, I think when you're
Mhm.
creating your own content, you're really showing people that what art is truly about,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes,
So I
and
wanted
you're
you to
right.
tell people go ahead.
And you're right about like the content and just really being a part of something that you feel matters. And whether it's the quality or just the project, it's what the message is about. And the people you work with, such a good community. For me, I see acting as therapy. I'm able to step outside of myself and I'm able to uh, like see myself at a different angle and I gain more and I'm a bit more open to things. And it's an incredible journey to go through. So
Yeah, and
I
you
wouldn't want
educate
it any
yourself on
other
a lot
way.
of stuff. You're kind of
Mhm.
learning as you go, so you learn more about yourself. So I want you to make sure that everybody knows how to get a hold of you and your movies.
Yes. So okay, so my name is Katie Wallen, Kaiti Wallen, Wallen, and you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, official Katie Wallen on Instagram and Facebook, TikTok. It's Katie Wallen actress. Yes, please. And also, Painted Creek Productions is the name of our production company. You can find us on
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok too. We like to keep that stuff, like we like to make reels and stuff and have a lot of fun when we're behind the scenes and stuff and sharing and letting the fans in on a little bit of the inside.
Oh, definitely. And then I wanted to let people know that also I will put her links down below. And so anything you want to get, you probably just click on. Um, but I think it's really important for you guys to keep watching Katie and the movies that she's making, because it sounds like she's making some content that we can all really benefit from. So thank you, Katie. This is Brenda Daly, and this is Real Women Celebrating Women in Film. And I really feel like talking to you, Katie, was really important for people to hear those messages. I know we kind of got off the filmmaker path, but I
Oh
think as
yeah.
filmmakers, we're very passionate about what we're doing.
Totally, totally. I loved it though. This ended up being really great. It's nice to be able to talk about this stuff and kind of get lost in it because I could about it for hours.
Well, and the thing is that we're such, people who make films or who people are usually super intelligent, and we're just so hyper focused on making sure the message is clear.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. Even when you're like when you're doing these interviews and stuff, because you're like, okay, I got to make sure to make certain points, but then you're like, oh wait, I got to make sure I stay on track too. Like you got to follow back and make sure
Right,
you
right.
answer all the questions.
Well, Katie, I'm definitely going to have you back. And so I do have to sign off. But thank you,
Oh,
Katie. This is
fun.
Real Women Celebrating Women in Independent Film. And it's been a real pleasure. And I'm definitely having you back on.